Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So 2 days ago, I made a video reacting to ESPN's top 10 defensemen and top 10 goalies list, which isn't even the ESPN journalists making it. It's actually them polling 10 players and 10 front office members in the NHL from different conferences and divisions, so it's nice and evenly distributed. And it was pretty interesting. I thought they had Jake Ottinger a little bit too high at 6th based on the season that he's having. He was ahead of a Jeremy Swayman, who's the same age as him, and Swayman has gotten better every single year. Ottinger's having a down year, as well as Victor Hedman being a little bit too high for my liking. Noah Dobson not cracking the top 10. So it's definitely interesting, and considering the perspective of these guys in the league, not trying to say I know more than everybody in the goddamn NHL, but it's definitely interesting to see what guys within hockey themselves say about this and what we can kind of take from this. So we're going to be doing the wingers first, and then we're going to be doing the centers. So let's dive into it. Up first, wingers 2024 ranking by players and executives. As I say, with these, the survey comes from 10 players, 4 from the Eastern Conference, 4 from the Western Conference, as well as 10 hockey ops members, 6 from the Eastern Conference, 4 from the West, including 2 coaches and 3 general managers. So not even just like assistant to the assistant general manager. These are legit general managers and coaches, what they want to say. So getting into it, I think we can assume Nikita Kucherov's probably gonna be number 1. Yeah, I'm just gonna go on a little limb, and I'm gonna say Nikita Kucherov's number 1. Gonna be interesting to see where they have a Panarin, who had a bit of a down year by his standards last year, but let's read it. Nikita Kucherov, number 1. Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a yes. Last year, I assume that they probably had David Pastrnak number 1. That makes 1,000% sense. Pasta was the goddamn Hart runner-up, but Kucherov right now definitely has separated himself as the best winger in hockey, considering he's on pace for like almost 50 goals and 135 points. Having an absolute, 94 points in 55 games. They don't show up, but I think Braden Point only has like 59 points. So he's leading the team by like 35. It's insane what he's doing right now. David Pastrnak, number 2. Makes sense. He's still playing elite. He's not having the exact goal scoring season as last year, but he's yet again on pace to go north of like 105 points. He's fantastic. Maybe he doesn't have the playmaking skills that Nikita Kucherov has, but he definitely is a better goal scorer in my opinion. Maybe not this season, but overall, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. 61 goals last year, as well as winning the Rocket back in 2019, 2020. Absolute stud. So far, so good. Oh, Panarin, number 3. This is tough. I'm trying to think of who else. Would I have Panarin number 3? I gotta see who else is there. This is, again, I think this season, solely this season, yes, I would say he's probably the 3rd best. He's been clutch nonstop against in every scenario for the New York Rangers, especially in the goddamn Stadium Series against my Islanders. But I gotta see who's at number. Oh, yeah, I would have Mikko Rantanen over Artemi Panarin. You look at Artemi Panarin, he's bowling out this season, but last year just wasn't that impressive. Compare that to a Mikko Rantanen, who's putting up around the same production. I know he plays with Nathan McKinnon, though, but last year, Mikko Rantanen had 55 goals, 50 assists. I would still have Mikko Rantanen. It's one of those things where, like, if you had a very, very good center, a top 15 center, I would probably rather have Mikko Rantanen playing with that center than an Artemi Panarin. But if you're saying that you have, like, an average center of, like, a Vincent Trocheck, who's, like, average first-line, second-line center, he's obviously a good player, I would maybe take Panarin because of his playmaking. But if you are a playoff team and your team's already very solid, I would rather have Mikko Rantanen, if that makes sense. But still, they would probably be my 3 and 4 unless I'm... Oh, Matthew Tkachuk. I would have Matthew Tkachuk number 3. Matthew Tkachuk is my number 3. I don't know why I forgot about him, but Matthew Tkachuk is my number 3. He has something ridiculous like 43 points in his last 22 games. He started off horrible. He was shooting at like 4%. Everybody knew, or I hope everybody knew, because it was obvious, like he just could not buy a freaking goal this year. Matthew Tkachuk is still my number 3 after what he did last year and the past 25 games. He's been a top 5 player in hockey. I know it was a rough start, but I would have Matthew Tkachuk still number 3, especially what he did last year in the playoffs. That was absolutely insane. Just last year, over 109 points. So that's interesting. But again, nothing like, it's not like a massive gap between. This season, like overall, Panarin probably has been the 3rd best. Mikko Rantanen probably the 4th best. Tkachuk probably the 5th best, maybe even lower considering that bad start. I just think, in my personal opinion, Matthew Tkachuk is the best player out of the 3. Kaprizov, 6, again, had a rough start, but similarly to, I made a post on this for Clutch Points. In his last 19 games, he has 15 goals, 17 assists, 32 points. He is absolutely heating up right now. But yeah, last year wasn't that impressive of a season. He still had 40 goals, 35 assists in 67 games. But Compare that to his 2 years ago when he had 47 goals, 61 assists, 108 points. It hasn't been that overwhelming. Mitch Marner, yeah, Mitch Marner's having a bit of a down year. I think 7 is a good spot, not really showing that high offensive potential that we saw last year with 99 points and 2 years ago with 97 in like 72 games, as well as defensively not being quite as good. So I think bumping him down last year at 4 makes perfect sense. He needs a little bit of a bump. William Nylander, yeah, I still go Marner over Nylander just because Marner's defensive impact. You can play him in basically, although Nylander has been playing some penalty kill minutes, I still think Marner's a more versatile player. And since William Nylander signed that extension, he's been solid, but he hasn't been exactly the same player. Kyle Connor, number 9, makes sense. Doesn't have the highest sample size this year because he missed a month and a half. He only has 19 goals in 36 games. I saw something that he got his first primary assist like 2 nights ago. That was absolutely crazy. So he's not a pass first guy, but he is a fantastic goal scorer. And then Brad Marchand, I don't know. I got to see who else is on this, but Brad Marchand, he's goal scoring at a very high rate this year. It's kind of crazy. He might score like an all-time high in terms of goals, but his overall play is definitely not what it used to be. I would have Jason Robertson over Brad Marchand. Definitely Brad Marchand. Definitely, yeah. But besides that, Forsberg, you can make an argument for. He's playing fantastic this year. Bratt's really good. Not too bad. Again, they have like the tiers, right? If that makes sense. There's definitely a gap. After it's like 1 and 2, fine. Then 3 through 5, kind of its own tier. Then 6, 7, 8, around the same range. I would maybe shuffle some things, but overall, I think this actually is a pretty solid list. Now we're going to move on to the centers. Okay, we're at the centers. We got the top 10 centers of 2024 as ranked by players and executives. I assume, yeah, it is the same. It's the same 2 coaches, 3 general managers. It's the same people that are voting. So we should be expecting around. Nothing too wild in terms of that. Connor McDavid's still number 1. This is why I like ESPN over TSN. TSN was ready to say that McKinnon was like the best center in the entire NHL. No, it's still Connor McDavid, especially considering Connor McDavid since, I believe it's like November 28th, has 74 points in like 36 games. He's been almost as dominant as last year since obviously the losings kind of stopped for the Edmonton Oilers. He's been great. Still number 1. I assume McKinnon's going to be number 2. Yep, makes sense. Who was, I guess, Matthews? Wait, who was number? I guess Draisaitl was probably number. I just spoiled that. Draisaitl was probably second last year, but Nathan McKinnon easily number 2. 107. For a second, I thought that was like his point pace. I'm like, he's not putting up 170 points. But yeah, he's probably going to go north of 130 for the first time in his career. Will he win the Hart? I don't know. I personally have Kucherov and Matthews over him right now, but I can definitely see him being second. I could also see a case. Matthews was also second last year. That's a little bit weird considering he had a big down year last year and he was still second. But compare that to McKinnon, who had 111 points in 70 games. But whatever. Matthews, I think this year probably is the second best center, maybe even the best center in the entire NHL. I would probably have him in second. I don't know. That's tough. Him and McKinnon, it's really a pick 'em. As long as you have McDavid number 1, I'm not really going to say that you're wrong in terms of that. So Matthews, Crosby number 4. He's playing great. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have that high offensive upside that these studs have nowadays. 55 points in 51 games. Yeah, 31 goals. Very impressive. He's goal scoring at a very high rate. But I don't know about again, fantastic two-way guy. Still at top 12. I think he was like 11th or 12th in my top 50. And 4th ahead of some of the guys that they're going to have is a little crazy. Like Leon Draisaitl, I get that Crosby's a better two-way player, but Leon Draisaitl has far more offensive upside. He can get you 128 goddamn points. Yes, that is with David, but I think even on his own team, he would be putting up 105, 110. He is that good. Barkov, I honestly think Barkov is a better two-way player than a Sidney Crosby at this point. I know that might be absolutely crazy. He doesn't have a ton of more points than a Sidney Crosby, but I think he's better defensively at this point than Sidney Crosby. I understand why you got to respect Sidney Crosby. And again, similarly to Panarin being a 3, there's not this massive gap between Crosby, Barkov, Draisaitl. Just my personal opinion. Then Jack Hughes. I understand Jack Hughes being a little bit low because he hasn't played a lot of games, but again, 50 points in 39 games. That's what, like 108 point pace. He's been great. Not really of late too much, considering the Devils are a little bit in a free fall, but I would also maybe move him up a spot or two. I'd probably have him over Sidney Crosby. I know it's a hot take. But yeah, Braden Point 8 makes sense. I feel like that's where the drop off is. That Jack Hughes, then to like a Braden Point, that is like a tier between. It's definitely McDavid, McKinnon, Matthews, then Crosby, Draisaitl, Barkov, Hughes. That makes sense. Like similarly, they're following like the normal tiers. There's no egregious tier jumping in this list, in my opinion. So it's a pretty solid list. Jack Eichel 9. So that means Pedersen. He's below. Ooh, Jack Eichel had a Pedersen. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel like that might be some. Oh, he won the cup. We got, yes, he was the number 1 star center who had earned a Stanley Cup ring. That might be some playoff bias. Jack Eichel is a fantastic player when he's healthy. Can't stay healthy for the life of him. I would definitely have him in my top 12. Definitely, but I assume that Pedersen's going to be 10. Yeah, Pedersen's 10. I personally would have Pedersen over a Jack Eichel. I think he has a far more offensive potential, as displayed by the fact that he had 102 points last year. Going to go north of 100 this year as well. Compare that to an Eichel. Very good two-way player, but has not really ever gone north of, 85 points in a season? Well, he gets hurt every single season, but even 85, 90-point pace is kind of Jack Eichel's limit. I would have Pedersen over Jack Eichel, but those guys are kind of in the same. I would maybe have Pedersen actually in the tier with Hughes and all those guys, if I'm going to be honest. But let's see who missed out. Tage Thompson, yeah, you can't really have him after he's been disappointing this year. JT Miller over an Eichel, who would probably be my number 10, I guess. No. Sebastian, I would maybe have Sebastian Aho in here over a Jack Eichel. I could see that. Not a Hintz, not a Zibanejad. Definitely not Kopitar. Reinhardt's like a wing. What are we doing? He plays wing with Barkov. I know he can play center, but Connor Bedard got a top 10. Oh wait. Among centers who didn't. Oh no, they did not get a top. I was going to say, if someone give Connor Bedard. Tomas Hertl got a top 10 vote. That's pretty crazy. But overall solid. Again, I think you got to have McDavid 1. How you rank Matthews and McKinnon is close in my opinion. 4 through 7 and maybe 4 through 8. No, 4 through 7, and even I think Pedersen might be in this tier. Makes sense. Then it's kind of Point, Eichel, Aho. So I think overall they did a very solid job with this. Compare this to the TSN list that they did midway through the season. ESPN for the win. ESPN for all the, and it's not even TSN's list were their own journalists, reporters. This is actually asking star players and general manager guys. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? What would your list look like in terms of top 10 centers, top 10 wingers? Who do you think was absolutely snubbed? Who'd you move up? Who'd you move down? And I'll be seeing the next one.